Welcome, you're listening to The Real Truth About You. This is a show where we try to help you to become and be the best that you can be by discovering the real you. In this episode, we're going to be talking about, what are we going to be talking about? Forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big thing, forgiveness. One of the things we talked about in one of our previous podcasts was that forgiveness, despite what you might think about it, is not necessarily just for the other person, but it's really for you to help you move along. It does help the other person, but it helps you to move along. And one of the things we discussed in a previous podcast was that forgiveness is not an emotion. It is not an emotion. It's not when I'm ready. All you have to do is decide to forgive. It's an action. It's a decision. And from that process comes healing. From that process of saying, yes, okay, even though I don't feel like it, I am going to forgive that person, whether they are alive or they're passed on in their life. Forgiveness is a decision. You know, I spent so much of my time in my life blaming my mother, who I love dearly, and especially now, and she's passed on, but for a lot of abuse issues that might not have been her fault or might have been her fault. I don't know. We're not blaming here. But I spent so much time blaming her for my life, my current life, that how long it took for me to gain back my confidence, my independence, my self-esteem, and everything else. And I blamed her, and I blamed all the kids at school. I was the guy that was always last picked for the teams. I was always the one that was like, somebody would say, I'm going to beat you up on Friday at 3 o'clock. And yeah, they surely did. And I wasn't stupid enough to run away. I was stupid enough to stay. I wasn't smart enough to run away. But anyway, I spent most of my life trying to blame people in my past for where I'm at today. But in reality, what I was doing, I was just living in my past. I was living my past over and over and over and telling myself all the things in my past that I told myself that I was no good. I wouldn't amount to much. I remember going to counselors, and one in particular, and I said, you know, I don't know why, but I seem to get successful at something up to a point. It's going really, really, really well, and then all of a sudden it falls apart, or it's not doing so good, or there's something wrong with it, or there's just something that's not right. And one of my counselors, this one in particular, says, well, that's because you're used to abusing yourself. You have like a little boy inside of you, and he's been abused all his past life, and that's all he's known. And this is hypothetical. I don't think there's somebody actually living inside of me, a little kid. But anyway, if there was, I'd be making money right now. But anyway, I'm not. So anyway, but that's beside the point. There's a little boy, she says, who's used to being abused. So what you are doing is continuing to abuse that little boy inside of you. You're programming your mind to fail at some point because you've told yourself, and this is me, I've told myself over and over and over again that I'm no good. That this is just the way it is. It'll always be this way. I'm always a flop. I'm always a failure. People don't really love me. I used to think I had to earn people's love. I had to be really good at something. I got really good at playing guitar because I noticed when I was 13 years old that when I put a guitar around my neck and I did really well, people noticed me. So I got really good at it, and I started playing in bars when I was 14 years old and things like that. And I really, really, really believed that I had to do good to be good. I had to be noticeable to be noticed. And I'm here to tell you, if you feel that way, if you feel that you're no good, if you've told yourself for year after year after year, either blatantly or very, very subtly, that you don't deserve good, that you don't deserve better, that you don't deserve to be loved. You have to earn your love, or you have to play mind games to be loved. My mother played a lot of mind games with us. So if you think that's what your life is about, it is time to stop. It is time to make a decision to forgive not only those in your past, but yourself. And remember, I always used to think, oh my gosh, I try to forgive my mom, but I just don't feel it. I try to forgive this person. I just don't feel it. I just don't feel it. But that's not what it's about. All you have to do with forgiveness is be willing. So all you have to do with forgiveness is be willing. Gabby Bernstein was on the Oprah show, and that's one of the things that she said. You just have to be willing to allow forgiveness to happen. Because if you're willing, even though you don't feel it, if you're willing, then it will begin to change. If you're on a spiritual journey, whatever your divine is, whether it's God or you believe it's the universe or whatever it is for you, I believe in God. But whatever it is for you, you will receive something in the process of this healing. You will receive God's grace because you're willing and you're open. Within you, there is light, not darkness. There is light. And sometimes we perceive our life to have darkness in it. But the only darkness is in there. The only darkness that is in there is the darkness that we have placed in there. And I mean that we have covered that light up. We have been created with the greatness of God in us. We have a light in us that wants to shine forth. We have a light in us that wants to fill our whole body, our whole soul, our whole being with goodness, with great things. When this light is so full in us, people sometimes call it awakening, or being filled with the Spirit, or being enlightened. That's what it's like when this light grows to fulfillment in us. And that process is a journey. And sometimes that process begins with forgiveness. I always consider, it's like having a candle or a light bulb or something, and it's protected, right? And you see it plain as day. You're born, and you see it plain as day, but then you start throwing something on top of it. And if it's just imagine a bedroom, and you start throwing a piece of clothing on it, and it half covers the light, and another piece, and it covers it a little bit more, and another piece of clothing, and it covers it a little bit more, until eventually you can't even see the light. You walk into your bedroom, and there's darkness. There's darkness in your bedroom because you've covered the light. And we need to go through a process of uncovering that light. And sometimes we need divine help. We need divine inspiration. Gabby Bernstein, I was listening to her on a podcast by Lori Harder. It's podcast number 38, if you're ever looking for Lori Harder on iTunes. And her podcast, loriharder.com. And she talks about this whole process. She talks about having to uncover this light. And that's what we need to do. She talks about this. When you are weak, it's because you're trying to do it yourself. You're working from your own power. When you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the first things, other than the awareness of you having an issue, right, And I want to tell you, if you feel your life is in darkness, that is not a bad thing. If you feel there's issues in your life, if you feel there's things wrong in your life, that is a good thing. That is not a bad thing. That is a sign that there is awareness in you. There's a bit of enlightenment in you, because I guarantee you, if you didn't know there was something wrong and you didn't know there was issues in your life that needed to be dealt with, then you'd be living in that darkness. You'd be totally unaware. So you've already, like the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or whatever, but the 12 steps begins with you become aware that there's an issue. And then you realize that you have to have a power greater than yourself to help you overcome that. And that's what a spiritual journey can do for you. A spiritual journey can help you to overcome that. I know in my life it's really helped me. When it comes to my mother, I've been through this whole process, and don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't love my mom. It's not like my mom didn't love me, right? She just lacked at the time the tools and the knowledge that were needed. She had to parent. She had a very, very abusive childhood herself. In today's age, we go for counseling and we have a realization that we grow up in this dysfunction. But back then, when she was growing up, no, you just lived your life. You put it under the carpet, and probably a lot of people can relate to that. Just wiped it right under the carpet. Sweeped it right under the carpet so that nobody could see it, other than the lump that's under the carpet, of course, and that everybody can see. But I got to a point where I knew I needed to forgive my mom. I'd been for counseling and all the things, and the counseling was great. I'm not saying it wasn't helpful. Counseling was great. It gave me some tools, equipped me with certain things. It showed me different techniques to handle certain things. Like when I got angry, I used to get angry a lot. How to let off steam in my imagination so that anger would dissipate. Things like that. But it wasn't until I started going to a spiritual director, Barb Wright. She's in Estefan. She was my spiritual director, and it was that journey of the Spirit, that journey to God. Where is God in my life? What is God saying in my life? Where is God at this part of my life? And she took me on this spiritual journey, and it's through that journey where I asked God to intercede for me, to do something divine that would interject and help me in this forgiveness process, that all of a sudden one day it just clicked. It just clicked, and I felt a strong forgiveness for my mother. And in my mind, she used to be the abuser in my life, right? Remember, I'm not saying I didn't love her or anything like that, but with this issue of abuse, in my mind, she was the abuser in my life. She was the one that caused me all the pain. But when I experienced this click, this moment, it was like a divine thing, and it wasn't anything that I had said or done otherwise. It just seemed to happen. That all of a sudden she moved from being my abuser in my head to being in my cheering section. Like, yay for you, I love you, you're awesome, you're going to do incredible things, that kind of thing. And as I've progressed in my spiritual journey, I've received even more forgiveness. And I don't know if we are actually capable of actually forgiving just by, oh, I forgive you, done, finished, over, yeah, great. I think forgiveness is a key. I think forgiveness is a key that unlocks a door to a path of healing and reconciliation. So I just want to encourage you, if you need to forgive, remember, it's not a feeling. It is a decision. It is an action. So move forward. Just be willing to want to heal. Heal, you don't like that. You can tell this is a live recording. There we go. But you can tell that you want to heal. You feel inside yourself, You want something different. You might not say it's, I want to heal, but you just want a better life. You want things to be better. And that's when you need to go through that forgiveness process. Put the key in the door. Say, I forgive you, and I'm ready to start the process. That does not mean you have hurts that don't need to be healed anymore. You still have hurts. If you were to fall off your bike or anything and break your leg, regardless of how sorry people feel for you, you still have a broken leg. Regardless of when you get up off your bike and start the healing process, you still have a broken leg that needs to be healed. So that healing process will begin. And it's actually already begun because you are open enough. And when you're open enough, you're doing things like listening to this podcast and hearing this message. So give yourself a bouquet. Kudos to you. Pat on the back. Yay for you. Awesome for you. You are great. You are ready to grab your life and run with it. Maybe not quite yet, but you're in the process of starting. Just like a sprinter or a marathon runner, they always have that crouching moment where they're down on their knees and they're ready and poised to start. Well, you are poised and ready to start. And if you've already started, keep the journey going. I want to encourage you, don't quit. You can do anything, but don't quit. Keep going. You guys are awesome. I'm really happy that you've been listening to this podcast. I keep forgetting to say my name. I'm Will Sinclair. I'm your host in this show, The Real Truth About You. Thank you for listening. You can get more information, and as we add them, resources at www.therealtruthaboutyou.com. So that's therealtruthaboutyou.com. Remember to share us, review us, comment, send us your questions if you have at support at therealtruthaboutyou.com. That's support at therealtruthaboutyou.com. We'll try to get your questions answered. And if you have requests, we may do a podcast on that. So thanks for listening. You have an awesome day. We'll see you in another episode of The Real Truth About You. Remember to share this podcast with your friends. And you know what? Have an awesome day because you rock.